In a different world than Earth, more specifically on the continent of Terranor, when the king's heart burns and disappears, a being that transcends the fate of the current world will arrive in this place. This was a legend that existed in Terranor, the legend of the summoning of the transcendent, otherworldly being. Emperor Berserk Lustana tried to sacrifice all his children, along with 19 members of royalty, in order to summon the god of the other world. After a simple and naked young man appeared, the king only cursed, saying that transcendence was horrible, and then ordered them to take the poor boy away from that place. The boy, upon arriving in this new world, was thrown into a completely strange and unknown land. Some time passed, and we returned to the castle of Berserk. The king seemed to be very injured and was summoning a being from another world to deal with the current situation. But the young swordsman did not seem intimidated by the situation, and came forth with a sweeping strike, cutting the otherworldly beast in half. The king cursed again, as it made no sense for an otherworldly beast to be cut so easily. The boy warned that the beasts were feared only because the laws of this world did not apply to them, but for him, that was not a problem. This is because he is also a being from the other world. He is the boy whom the king summoned from the other world and then discarded, the savior of the other world, Seong Shi-Han. It seems that a powerful lineage magic passed to the inner circle of the king's empire, and with that, they gained the ability to summon beings from the other world. Because the king had this power, many died, and his people had to suffer from brutal tyranny and extortion. Not to mention that, because of this tyranny of the king, the boy also had to go through hell. At that time, thinking he was just an ordinary boy, he was thrown away like trash. He barely managed to escape with his life from that place, and took 3 whole years to come back here. He lived a pure, meaningless hell just to point his sword one day at that king and get his revenge. So, he says the king's tyranny ends here, the anger and resentment of his companions who were killed by him. He will put everything into this blow. The king tried to curse again, putting all the blame on that damn prophecy. So, the king's life was finally taken. The tyranny of this empire will finally end. The protagonist, satisfied with the outcome, sheathes his sword. He achieved what he wanted so much. He let out a deep sigh. When someone behind him called for him, he was completely happy, calling Lavina's name. The girl also seemed happy, saying that he finally managed to defeat the king, and congratulated him on this achievement. He thanks her, saying that it was indeed a long battle, gives her a strong hug. He said that she won't have to worry about anything anymore, and he will do his best to make her happy forever. This makes the woman very happy, until someone behind them warns that it's not over yet. They need to burn the king's heart to get rid of the rest of the monsters. Now praising the incredible power of the protagonist, says he never thought he could really defeat the demon king. The protagonist is impressed with Lil Stein's words. Another of the warriors present asked it, in case they burned the king's heart, the protagonist wouldn't disappear along with it. But a blonde guy says that the protagonist was summoned through the hearts of the royals, not the king, so he won't return to his world even if they burn the heart. Everyone starts laughing, as the king summoned his greatest enemy with his own hands. His girlfriend asked if he didn't need to return to his world, but he asserts that he has already made his decision. For all his allies who fought with him, putting their lives at risk, the friends with bonds he created along the way, and the person he will love for the rest of his life, all these people are present here, and he would be lying if he said he doesn't miss her, but he will have no regrets in choosing this world. After all, everything that matters most to him is here in this world. Everyone seemed to be very happy with his decision. Lil Stein said it seems like he made his choice, and he said yes, he is sure of this decision, until his girlfriend calls for him, and gives him a super kiss, leaving him all shy. Caught off guard, he asks why this suddenly, and with a mischievous smile, she says it's very disturbing. He doesn't understand the situation until a gigantic portal forms behind him. Quickly, he shouted for everyone to be careful, that someone opened a dimensional portal, but was surprised to notice the difference in everyone's behavior. The remains of the king's heart were in Lil Stein's hands, until they begin to say that even if the entire Touré lineage has died, if they have access to the heart's dust, it is possible to open a dimensional portal to the other world. So, saying that the protagonist has become very powerful, has become very well known, and on top of that still receives love. At this rate, he will become their king, and they don't need another one. Undoubtedly he is the savior of this world, and that is why they are grateful, but also why he must return to his own world. So they will shape the future of this world themselves and will not leave it in the hands of a foreigner. The protagonist, completely panicked, asks what they are talking about. He looked at his girlfriend and started asking for help, saying he couldn't move, but was surprised when she called his name. Giving a mischievous smile, she says he could have made the right choice, right? The protagonist still seemed not to understand the situation. Then she apologizes, saying she doesn't want to be the wife of a king, even though she wants to be a queen. She doesn't want to be a man's prize. She wants to become a woman who has a man as a prize. Then she says that he is a man who cannot be her prize. Questioning what kind of joke this is, he began to get furious. She, on the other hand, says that he seems to be having difficulties and will help him relieve his pain. And it was she, his beloved, who gave him the final push, saying that his love must return to the other world. Return to where you belong, our great savior. At that moment, many things went through the protagonist's mind, but it was already too late for that. He was indeed sent back to the other world. The story told was that the world was saved by the savior from the other world and 6 heroes. The savior from the other world completed his calling. They accepted his will, and he returned home. And all of this brought a new future. That's what the great warrior and his savior, Seong Shi-Han, wanted. Lil Stein warned that the Mad King's reign was over, and that even they, the 6 heroes, would become the pillars of this land. So the era of the 6 kingdoms begins. The entire population went wild with an announcement of the new 6 pillars. Brutal taxes were erased, and people were freed from forced labor. The 6 kingdoms worked together with each other and ruled the continent of Terranor with times of peace and prosperity. But it seemed that this wouldn't end there because the portal was being opened again. Now, in a house in a town further from the big capital, a girl sang happily while doing her chores. She said the sky was clear again, no clouds in sight. This is great weather for plowing the field. So, with her small hoe she dug. She was happy with the life she had. When, suddenly, she noticed something strange. Looking to the side, there was a reasonably large fish there. She was impressed by it. This was a squished fish, a fresh and alive fish. But when she stopped to think, she noticed how a fish like that could appear out of nowhere in the depths of the forest. Realizing that all of this was very suspicious and not knowing if she could eat it, she ignored the fish and went back to her work. Until suddenly, a gigantic explosion happened in the middle of the forest. Quickly, she turned to see what it was, and it seems that there was a pig that departed from this life. She had no idea what was happening. First a fish and now a pig. Then it was at that moment that she saw. There was a man falling from the sky, and this man falling from the sky seemed to be completely naked. What made her even more suspicious of the situation, until the man crashed against the ground, causing a loud noise. She didn't understand why a pig and now a naked man. It made no sense. But obviously, she went towards the man asking if he died from the fall. The guy pulled his head out of the ground and looked around to know where he was. Realizing the type of vegetation of this place and the style of the house, he knew he was back. Laughing and celebrating a lot, he said he finally managed to come back to this place. He shouted crazily for those damned people to wait for him. He simply fainted in front of the girl, which left her completely puzzled. With that, the night came, and at that moment inside the house, the protagonist woke up. Realizing that he was inside the house, he began to understand things. When the girl asks if he finally woke up, she said she brought him some hot porridge and asked if he was feeling well, even saying that she was surprised to see a person falling from the sky. The protagonist questions if she saved him. He felt a lot of pain in his body, saying that it must be the side effects, even wondering if his calculations were wrong, but everything he said she didn't understand. This was a different language, which led her to ask if he was from some primitive tribe. Noticing now that he was no longer on Earth, he was speaking in an unknown language. He speaks in the language of this continent, asking if she was the one who saved him. She said yes, it was her, and he asks where they are. She explains that they are north of the Defilan mountain, about midday from the village of Gorin. Of course, the protagonist has no idea where that is, so she says she will explain. The territories first, warning that they are in the kingdom of Lilstein. Lilstein is a country created after the first revolution of the 7 heroes. Hearing this, the protagonist bursts into laughter. Cursing, he says that damn guy became a king now? She didn't quite understand what he was talking about, but before continuing, he asks her to lend him some clothes. At this moment, he had already eaten several bowls of porridge and continued to eat frantically. He said that there had a strong smell of fish and even began to think that the local cuisine must be quite fancy. Of course, he explains that he is not trying to be ungrateful and, in fact, thanks for the good food, which surprises the girl. Looking at him, she notices that he has little or no body fat besides having a face with clean features. All of this leads her to wonder if he is royalty. After eating another bowl of porridge, he says he still hasn't asked his savior's name. She says her name is Alida and, as he can see, she is a country girl. The protagonist, noticing that she seems well trained, asks if nowadays swordswomen are treated as country girls. This leaves her surprised, and she asks how he knows that. He said it's just a feeling, and it's kind of hard to explain. She said she is indeed a warrior, though not a knight. She said that since she has no king to serve, she's just a freelancer and takes care of the field because there's nothing else to do. After understanding the situation, he says he has one more question for her. He asks what kind of relationship she has with King Lustenat. Quickly, she threw a table toward him and was already coming at him. Drawing her white weapon, she jumped over the table to attack him. But she was surprised because the guy wasn't there anymore, now being behind her. He says he didn't ask that because he was looking for a fight. Turning quickly to try to attack him, she asks how he got behind her so fast, but he easily dodged that attack, which leaves her impressed, asking if he's also a warrior. Then again, she tried to attack. He said he had no intention of fighting her, so she could stop attacking and talk. She, on the other hand, noticed that this guy was very strong, as he was dodging all her attacks with the least possible movement. So she starts attacking faster, saying that she needs to overcome him, which makes him give a slight smile, saying that she is not as calm as she seems, right? But as she came from behind, he says that, in fact, she has a good heart. She attacked with her dagger with all her strength, but he noticed that she was aiming for his shoulders. This means she has no intention of killing him. She was completely panicked, until she was thrown away. That guy she saved just defeated her using a simple wooden spoon. Admitting her defeat, she asks who he is. Then he says that his name is Seong Shi-Han, and he is from Earth. Hearing this, she is completely impressed, asking if he could be the savior from the other world, that's some, which leads him to understand that he has not been forgotten yet. He now explains that he didn't ask maliciously about the king, and if she doesn't want to answer, she doesn't have to. However, she says her full name is Alitiers Bella Lustenad Lusklan. She is the daughter of the former Mad King named Berserk Lustenad. During that period when the protagonist defeated the Mad King, the population wanted to eliminate the entire bloodline so there wouldn't be a second Mad Emperor. Inside the mansion, the situation was also complicated. A blonde-haired woman said that Karen was the only man she could rely on right now. The girl cried throughout this tense moment. The warrior promised the woman that he would protect this child. He would protect this child by putting his life and honor at stake. Karen became a bodyguard who cared a lot about the girl, and he raised her in the best possible way while teaching her to fight. But after the girl's identity was revealed, the poor man ended up losing his life. Therefore, since then, she has been living in this remote village, and only goes to the city when she needs to get a job because she is out of money. The protagonist understood her situation and why she hides in this way, but he admits that he didn't know she was the emperor's daughter and even asks if he is then an enemy of her father. She said she has no affection for the deceased emperor, besides that people fear the blood relationship, as it can open a portal to the other world. Therefore, there are people after her trying to eliminate her, and she thought the protagonist was one of those people. The protagonist, after understanding the whole situation, starts getting irritated, but he changes suddenly, saying that she has to cheer up. As compared to other people he knows, they are good people. Hearing this makes her a bit curious, which leads her to ask if he is really the savior from the other world, as she heard that after defeating the emperor, he returned to Earth. So, how did he come back here? Also, why did he come back here naked? He stands up in panic trying to explain that it was something beyond his control and tries to explain that the only thing that can go between dimensions is living organisms. In fact, when he arrived in this world, he was also naked, and when he returned to Earth, he was unlucky enough to appear in a very famous crossroads and was also naked at that moment, much to his dismay, which starts to irritate him. She said that he really came back to Earth 10 years ago, but was summoned to this world again by someone. She can't believe that someone can summon a person from another world again. Who would be able to do that? And he calmly says that, actually, it was he himself who came back here alone. She is impressed, asks if he really summoned himself and if that's possible. He said yes, it is possible, but it wasn't easy and it took 10 years. And when he was about to explain how he did it, he noticed something around. She asks what happened. So, to clarify, he says that the reason she has been pursued is that she has royal blood and has the power to summon people from the other world. Right? It seems he made a big mistake. He explains that, to enter this world and leave Earth, he needs to first arrive safely, and for that, dimensional magic pointers are needed. To summarize, he used the coordinates of royal blood, and she is the one with the purest blood. In other words, he used her as a summoner to this world, which means that, to the other mages of this world, it seemed like she was the one who summoned him with her magic. Right? She is incredulous with this whole situation, and she gets up scared, going to the window, she can notice many torches were coming from the forest, and these were all Empire guards. They were coming directly to Alita's small house. An old man says that there are traces of conjuration magic around here, and he's sure it's coming from that house. He was reporting this to the superior Zenon. The guy thanks everyone for their efforts, and orders everyone to prepare for the upcoming battle. The protagonist inside the house was surprised, because that woman put on her battle attire and looked beautiful, besides not seeming too worried. All of this leads him to ask if she always trained with such a situation in mind. All this starts to panic the protagonist, as he feels guilty for this whole situation. He thinks that even if she doesn't show it, she must be completely furious with him, which makes him warn that if she has anything to say, feel free to speak. This caught her off guard and made her think. Then she thanks the protagonist for letting her know about their surprise attack in advance. This left our protagonist completely awkward and surprised. Outside, the guard shouted for the sinner to show up or else they would have to blow up the whole house. Zenon asks the mage to start with a small attack. Conjuring a fire spell in his hands, he releases a gigantic fire spear onto the house. This surprises Zenon. He asks if this isn't too much, as their orders are to bring her in alive, but the mage explains that this explosive is only on the surface and won't kill her. In fact, if she's unlucky, he says she might get burned a bit, but the girl passes through them, cutting several. All the guards start moving in to try to capture her, but she easily cuts through many of them, even impressing the guards, asking if the woman from this farm is a swordsman. At that moment, she began to think about how she could get out of this situation, until a strong attack came her way. The guy who attacked asks how someone with the cursed blood of the king dares to attack a royal soldier. He warns that, from here on, the Lilstein knight named Zenon will deal with her. She noticed that there was fighting energy in his armor too, and that he was stronger than her. He quickly tried to strike her, but missed. She also dodged his next attack, and said there was a chance. She attacked in his opening, but was repelled by some kind of magic. The guy praises her, saying she's very strong. His defense is more resilient. He says that this kind of trick doesn't work on him, and in the next instant, we see that she is suffering. He landed a powerful blow on the girl, which apparently splattered blood on his face. He felt disgusted, saying that if she's a true swordsman, she knows she doesn't stand a chance and should lower her weapon. She, on the other hand, now with a broken arm, realized that this really was her fate. So, she surrendered to the strength of the man. The man was happy to hear that, saying that it really is the right decision. However, someone appears behind him calling him. This was the protagonist asking the guy if he wasn't angry all this time, and now he's calm just because he felt sorry for her. The commander, on the other hand, didn't even know how to react, wondering who this guy was and how he approached. The guy really got close to him, and he didn't feel a hint of the man's presence. Quickly, he starts asking who the guy in front of him is. The protagonist, on the other hand, just apologizes to him in advance, as he has nothing against his personality. He will have to take some responsibility for this. The guy just trembled because he was hit by a full punch from our protagonist without even understanding the situation. He ended up crashing on the ground not far away. He even ended up buried with the impact of the fall. The guards were all in panic witnessing this. The woman wonders why he opposes the soldiers since he was the former hero. So, why would he hit his former allies? The old mage quickly starts saying that he is a remnant of the evil army and that they must kill him immediately. As the soldiers approach, he asks if they really won't retreat, even though their leader has been taken down. So, it seems he has no choice. He just starts punching everyone. Those he didn't punch, he stomped on, beating everyone up while apologizing. Zenon, after finally getting out of the hole, looks ahead and is incredulous. All his guards were unconscious and buried. He couldn't believe that an unarmed person defeated all these soldiers with just one hand. Looking at the situation of the guards, he realizes that this also happened to him moments ago, until he begins to remember that he has seen that man before. There was a time in the royal castle when he was lucky enough to see him in person, the great savior of humanity from. The protagonist now looked at him with disdain, saying that he really woke up, but it seems he'll have to sleep a little more. The guy asked him to wait a little longer, but the protagonist was already coming, and another explosion was inevitable. The chief of the guard was buried in the ground again. The protagonist, amidst all that chaos, now says that there's no reason to continue fighting. However, if the mage really wants to come at him, he'll face him. The mage, noticing that even the elite warriors and wizards had no chance at all, begins to wonder where that monster came from. The protagonist, warning that the guards are not attacking anymore, asks the woman what she intends to do. Until some time later, we see both of them leaving that place. The mage regretted not being able to do anything, so he tells everyone that the mission failed, they should collect the bodies, and they should also return now to report everything. One of the guards, somewhat awkwardly, tries to explain that not a single person is currently dead, even among the wounded, none of them has a single broken bone. The mage in complete panic asks how is this possible? What the hell happened today? With that, the night came, the protagonist said that the soldiers wouldn't be able to follow them here. Of course, he thanks for that since it would be annoying if they followed. The effects of him being transported to this world again were too great, and he's not even at 10% of his original power until suddenly he sees the woman complaining about pain. The protagonist asks how she's doing since he thought her right arm was broken. She, on the other hand, thanks her luck, as things could have been much worse. This makes the protagonist think that she is very strange for thanking for that. Not long after, the protagonist bandages her and says that he hopes it helps her, because, as always, she thinks. Then, all happy, she says that it's time for her to leave and is going. Clearly, it's an act of desperation from her and even leaves the protagonist stunned. Quickly, he shouts asking where she is going. He starts scolding her, saying that her arm is broken, they should travel together, and she can't make decisions like that out of nowhere. So, calming down, he says he will help her since he is partially responsible for her being hunted today and can't leave an injured person behind. She is a bit taken aback, thinks about everything he said for a moment, and says okay, then she'll be under his care today. The protagonist just asks her to stop calling him sir and call him only by his name, and that's what she does. He asks what she plans to do now that her identity has been discovered. She thought about going to the nearest village, but there must be a search party after her, so they decide to just cross the mountain and go to the commercial city of Kagan. Now, in the palace of the Lilstein kingdom, there was a man reading a book in front of a shelf full of them when suddenly he was called. A man appeared, notifying that he brought news about the search party that went to the Defilan mountain. The man now named as the first king Lilstein first listened to reports that someone with a description similar to the former hero emerged near traces of conjuration magic. Could it be that the great savior of humanity has returned? And I can't wait to see the reunion of our protagonist with this bunch of traitors that I sent to the other world. I especially need to see the reaction of his former girlfriend when she realizes he's back. But that's something we'll only have in the next video, so leave a like and subscribe to the channel for the continuation. So for today, that's it, folks, see you next time.